You know what's wild? The richest people you'll never hear about aren't buying yachts or posting their net worth on Instagram. In fact, most of them drive cars that are 10 years old and shop at regular grocery stores. But here's the thing that keeps most people broke. They're obsessing over the wrong definition of wealth entirely. Today, I'm breaking down 7 quiet rules that separate people who actually build real wealth from everyone else who just talks about it. These aren't sexy rules. They won't make for great cocktail party conversation. But if you implement even 3 of them, your financial life changes completely. So stick around, because by the end of this, you're going to understand exactly why your neighbor with the Ferrari will never be as rich as your boring accountant friend. What nobody tells you about the millionaires next door. Most people think wealthy people are easy to spot. They're wearing designer clothes. They're flexing on social media. They're the ones everyone notices. But Thomas Stanley and William Danko studied this extensively, and here's what blew my mind. The majority of millionaires in America don't look rich at all. They live in average neighborhoods, drive average cars, and nobody would pick them out of a crowd. The real secret? They understand something fundamental that broke people completely miss. Real wealth isn't about what you make, it's about what you keep. I've seen people making 6 figures go broke, while people making $50,000 a year quietly accumulated millions. The difference comes down to these 7 specific rules that wealthy people follow religiously. And here's your first clue. The first rule is going to feel backwards to you initially. Section 1. The invisible income rule. Why your salary isn't your real wealth builder. Here's what most people get wrong about making money. They think the path to wealth is simple. Get a higher salary, make more money, become rich. Logical, right? Except it doesn't work that way. I know a guy who went from making $60,000 a year to making $300,000 a year. You'd think his wealth skyrocketed, but it didn't. His lifestyle scaled up proportionally. His apartment got fancier, his car got nicer, his restaurants got more expensive. He calls it the salary treadmill, and it's the biggest trap in personal finance. The real wealth builders understand that your income isn't what matters. What matters is the gap between what you earn and what you spend. That gap, that's your real power. According to behavioral economist studies, people adjust their spending to about 95% of whatever they earn, regardless of the amount. So, someone making $30,000 and someone making $300,000 end up with nearly identical financial stress. The wealthy have cracked this code differently. They keep their lifestyle relatively fixed while letting their income grow. That gap compounds over time, and that's where fortunes are actually built. The first quiet rule is this: treat your salary as irrelevant to your wealth journey. Instead, obsess over that gap between income and expenses. Section 2. The boring asset accumulation rule. Why flashy investments fail. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When most people think about investing, they picture themselves as the next stock market genius, timing the market perfectly, finding that one magical investment that'll make them rich overnight. It's exciting, it's energizing, and it's why most people lose money. The wealthy have figured out something that sounds incredibly boring. Boring wins. I'm talking about consistent, unsexy, automatic wealth building through regular investment vehicles. A study by Vanguard found that people who consistently invested the same amount every month, regardless of market conditions, outperformed active traders by approximately 4 to 6% annually over 20 years. That's not exciting. You can't brag about it. But a 4% difference over 20 years? That's literally doubling your wealth compared to someone trying to be clever. The second rule wealthy people follow is this: they automate their boring investments and then pretend that money doesn't exist. They set up automatic transfers to index funds, bonds, or real estate investment vehicles, and then they just forget about it. No checking daily, no emotional decisions, no panic selling during downturns. The consistency of boring beats the excitement of trying to be a genius every single time. Section 3. The lifestyle boundary rule, where rich people draw the line. This one's going to hit different because it requires real self-awareness. I watched someone make this shift, and it was like watching someone wake up from a spell. She made $200,000 a year in tech, and despite that massive income, she was living paycheck to paycheck. The moment she actually looked at her spending, she realized she was spending $198,000 a year. $2,000 monthly rent in a trendy neighborhood, regular $700 restaurant dinners, brand new luxury car payments, the works. Then she made a decision that changed everything. She decided, arbitrarily, to live like she made $100,000 a year instead. She moved to a less trendy neighborhood, cut her rent in half, switched to cooking at home most nights, and bought a reliable used car with cash. That created a $100,000 annual gap. In 3 years, she had $300,000 in investments. In 7 years, close to $1 million. The third quiet rule is about drawing a line around your lifestyle and protecting it fiercely. It's not about deprivation. She still traveled. She still went out. She just decided those things came from that $100,000 portion she allocated to living, not from the $100,000 portion allocated to building. This simple boundary is what separates people who build wealth from people who just earn it. Section 4. The debt as a tool rule. Understanding what wealthy people borrow for. Here's where conventional wisdom gets it backwards. Most advice says avoid debt at all costs. And for consumer debt, credit cards, car loans, personal loans, that's accurate. But wealthy people have a completely different relationship with debt. They understand the difference between good debt and bad debt, and they weaponize good debt strategically. I studied this because it seemed counterintuitive, but here's the math. If you can borrow money at 4% and invest it in something that returns 7%, you're making 3% arbitrage on someone else's money. Real estate works this way constantly. Wealthy people will borrow at 4% to buy an apartment building that generates 6% returns in cash flow plus appreciation. They're building wealth with other people's money. Compare that to buying a car with debt. You're financing a depreciating asset, which is wealth destruction. The fourth rule is this. Wealthy people are extremely selective about debt. They only borrow for assets that can generate returns or appreciate in value. They never borrow for consumption. And they structure these loans to amplify their wealth building, not to fund their lifestyle. They understand debt isn't evil. It's just a tool that can build you or break you depending on how you use it. Section 5. The network multiplication rule. Why your circle determines your wealth ceiling. This one's subtle but absolutely powerful. Research from Harvard showed that one of the strongest predictors of someone's financial success isn't their intelligence or their work ethic. It's who they surround themselves with. The median income of your 5 closest friends is eerily predictive of your own financial trajectory. When I first learned this, I thought about my own circle and realized it was true. I was hanging around people making roughly what I made, and my income stayed roughly flat. Then I made a deliberate shift. I joined professional groups where people were making significantly more. I attended conferences where successful entrepreneurs gathered. I wasn't trying to use them. I was genuinely curious about their perspectives. And something shifted. My income didn't change overnight, but my beliefs about what was possible changed. That led to different decisions. Different business opportunities started appearing. Conversations sparked ideas I wouldn't have had alone. Within 3 years, my income had more than doubled. The fifth rule wealthy people follow is this. They're strategic about their network. They understand that proximity to successful people isn't about using them. It's about osmosis. You absorb their thought patterns, their problem-solving approaches, their belief systems around money. And that literally changes how you make decisions. If your circle is all people living paycheck to paycheck, you'll naturally make paycheck-to-paycheck decisions. If your circle includes people building wealth, you start seeing opportunities that circle never sees. Section 6. The delayed gratification rule. The one thing rich people say no to. This sounds ancient, but it's the most overlooked wealth-building principle of the modern era. We live in a world of instant gratification. You want something, You can have it today. Amazon delivery, credit cards, financing options, everything is immediately available. And this is exactly why most people stay broke. Wealthy people have weaponized the word no. Not no to everything. That's not sustainable or healthy. But no to the things that don't align with their wealth-building goals. I watched someone turn down a promotion to a higher-paying job because it would have required more travel and hurt their family time. Instead of increasing lifestyle, they invested the difference in real estate. Another person turned down expensive vacations for 5 years straight. Instead, she invested the money, and when she did start traveling, she could fund it from investment income rather than salary. These sound like small decisions, but they're actually massive. The sixth rule is about understanding your personal non-negotiables and then protecting them fiercely. Rich people know exactly what they want their life to look like, and they don't let lifestyle inflation or social pressure derail that vision. They say no to good opportunities if they don't serve the wealth-building goal. That sounds limiting, but it's actually liberating because it means every financial decision becomes purposeful rather than reactive. Section 7. The Knowledge Investment Rule. The asset that multiplies everything. Here's the final rule, and it might be the most important one. Every wealthy person I've interviewed has one thing in common. They invest relentlessly in learning. Not the kind of learning you do because you have to, the kind of learning you do because you're obsessed with understanding something better. Warren Buffett reads 500 pages a day. Bill Gates reads 50 books a year. Naval Ravikant spent decades studying economics, psychology, and philosophy before he became wealthy. But here's the thing. They weren't reading to become wealthy. They were reading because they were curious, and that knowledge happened to compound into wealth. The seventh quiet rule is this. Wealthy people treat education as their highest ROI investment. Not college degrees necessarily, though some get them. I'm talking about systematic knowledge in your field, in investing, in psychology, in business, in economics. Every dollar you invest in becoming genuinely knowledgeable compounds forever. It changes how you see opportunities. It changes how you negotiate. It changes how you make decisions. Someone who understands behavioral economics will never fall for a get-rich-quick scheme. Someone who understands real estate will spot deals everyone else misses. Someone who understands business psychology will build teams that outperform. Knowledge isn't sexy. You can't show it off like a car. But it's literally the only asset that can't be taken from you, that only multiplies with use, and that transforms every other asset you own. So here's what just happened. You walked in thinking real wealth was about one big break, one lucky investment, or one magical salary jump. You're walking out understanding something completely different. Real wealth is built through 7 unsexy, boring, consistent rules that anyone can follow. The invisible income gap that matters more than your salary. The boring asset accumulation that beats every fancy investment strategy. The lifestyle boundary that protects your future. The strategic debt that builds instead of destroys. The network that multiplies your opportunities. The delayed gratification that compounds over years. And the knowledge investment that changes everything. These 7 rules won't make you famous. They won't make for viral social media content. But they'll make you actually rich. And that's the only wealth that matters. Now here's the thing about these 7 rules. They work. But most people struggle with actually rewiring the psychology behind them. Knowing the rules and living them are 2 different battles. That's why I started looking deeper into frameworks that address the mental side of this, not just the tactics. I came across the Dubai Wealth Secret, and it's built around exactly this gap, bridging what you know with how you actually think about money day to day. Links in the description if you want to go deeper. If you made it this far, comment which rule you're worst at. For me, it took years to fix the lifestyle boundary one. And if you want a framework for actually rewiring your money psychology, not just memorizing rules, the link below is where I'd start. I'm Mercer. This is Reckoning. The truth was always coming due.